Hi guys, welcome to the June Stamping Society tutorial where this month we are featuring new in colour products. So that is the 5 brand new colours to the Stampin' Up range, which if I was organised I'd have them out. Here's 4 of them, I think. Which one am I missing? I am missing Starry Sky. So these are the 5 new in colours, and we're featuring projects this month that incorporate them in all kinds of different ways. So I think I have put every single new in colour on this card. So I wanted to feature a new bundle to the new mini catalogue, which is I'm not sure if it's called Cup of Tea or Tea Boutique is the suite, I think. So it's a stamp set and die bundle. And I wanted to also combine that with 2 other new products, which are really super cool. And that is the Dots and Spots die and the Stylish Shapes. These are a fantastic alternative for the stitch shapes that we used to have. So I'm really excited that these got brought into the range. And this one is like a background die. It is sized, I think, to American cards. So I've just simply cut it out and then trimmed mine down to my layer for my card front, but it makes a super cool background. So I'm going to show you how I created this card, and I apologize for the lighting. It's really rainy and cold here today, so I've got some fake lighting which never is as nice as natural lighting. So I have pre-cut out some of my bits and pieces for my card. If you want to know the measurements for this card, then you can do so by purchasing the PDF, which will have all 6 tutorials from the Stampin' Society team, and that will have the metric and imperial measurements on there. Otherwise, you can earn it for free simply by shopping with the demonstrator respective in your country. So if you're in Australia, you simply place an order of $35 or more and you'll get the tutorial for free. Otherwise, you always get my tutorials free when you join my team. So you can see those links in the video description below. So I have pre-cut out one of the circles from the Stylish Shapes, and I used the second largest one. And then I have also die cut out a teacup from the Teacup dies. So this one's really cool because the teacup die can cut out these ones here, or you can just cut out the teacup and layer this detailed die over the top, which is really cool. And that one's cut from the new in colour Sweet Sorbet, which is really beautiful. And then I have die cut out one of these little tiny tags, which is like the tea bag little end, what do you call that thing? The tea bag tag. And then I'm going to stamp a little sentiment on that one. So I'm going to do some stamping as well. So I've got some scraps of Parakeet Party, which PS is my favourite new in colour. And then I've got a scrap of basic white to do some stamping and a scrap of basic black for the sentiment. And then I have pre-cut out my bits and pieces. So I've got a basic white thick card base and some layers for my inside and some layers for my outside. Now, note that I have cut out the Dots and Spots die from some Fluid 100 watercolour paper, because to get this funky background, I'm actually going to watercolour the background. So I'm going to show that you how to do that first so that it can set aside to dry. So I'll pop these bits to the side. I'm just going to bring in some scrap paper, and I'm going to use my water painters. So these are really cool. They come in 3 different sizes. I use them a lot, but when I'm doing a big background, I'm going to use the largest ones. This has got quite a I suppose a wide nib, I think you'd call it. And I've just got a bit of a cloth here, so I'm just going to run some water and make sure that's clean. And then I'm going to start with probably my lightest colour. So you can see the card sample there. I've gone from Parakeet Party to Tahitian Tide, and then at the top I've got some Starry Sky. So I'm just going to squeeze my pad together to get a nice amount of ink on the lid, and then I'm just going to wet my card with just an approximate amount. I haven't really done thirds because I didn't quite add as much Starry Sky, but that's okay. I just wanted to get all 3 colours on there. So I'm just dipping it back in, and that's why I die cut it out with the Fluid 100 paper, because it is a watercolour paper, so it can take a fair bit of water. So I'm just going to, I haven't actually got the re-inkers yet. I need to get those. So I'm just going to have to go back in and add some more colour. So I want that colour to be a bit deeper. If you're going to add a lot of colour, it's really good to just pop some of the re-inker into the lid rather than having to keep squeezing it. My re-inkers are on their way. I think I might do it once more just so I can make sure I've got a nice bright green. And I'm not doing this neatly just because I'm obsessed with the green. I'm going to add some more. I believe in messy watercolour. Okay, so I'm just going to rinse my brush off a bit. Get rid of some of that green on there. And then I'm going to move into my next colour, which is this Tahitian Tide. So if I had to pick favourites, I would pick this one and the Parakeet Party. I just love them. Okay. So I'll just add some of this. And I am overlapping them. This looks more complicated than it is. You could get a few of these backgrounds cut out and do a heap of these. They're pretty easy. I love the watercolour look. It's completely different to cutting it out of just the coloured cardstock. These ink pads, because they're brand new, are quite juicy. Okay. The next colour is quite rich, so I wouldn't need to add as much. So that's my Tahitian Tide. And the last one I'm going to add is the Starry Sky. So I'll just give my brush a quick rinse. That's very, very bright. Not bright, but probably deeper in colour. So I'm just going to prep. Look at that. Probably should move my final card out of the way. Starry Sky is such a beautiful colour. Sort of more of a, I don't know, it's a bit lighter than Night of Navy, but it's just really, really elegant. It's beautiful. I love blues and greens together, so this year's in colours were perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to rinse that one out, and as you can see, that one does need a bit more rinsing out because it's such a deep colour. Sort of like reds when you add them, but if you squeeze it through a few times, it's good. Okie doke. So I'm going to set this one aside to dry, and then we'll be able to mount that onto the card base. So let's work on some stamping while that one dries. So I'm going to pull in my scrap of basic white and my scrap of basic black and scrap of Parakeet Party. So I want to stamp a few things here that I can die cut out. So I'll show you as I go along. I'm going to stamp this lot of flowers in Sweet Sorbet. And hopefully this scrap I've pulled in will be big enough to get all my stamping done. So I just want those flowers like that. And then I have this beautiful image here, and I'm going to stamp that one twice in Orchid Oasis. Now, I'll see how this goes stamping, but my ink pads are really juicy. No, that one's fine. I'll show you a tip if they do. I think it's my Parakeet Party. That's the one that is quite wet. So if that happens, I'll give you a tip. I have been using it a bit, so it might be fine. So I'm just going to ink that up and stamp that down. Oh, it's pretty good today, but if it is blotchy, the tip that I have is grabbing, and I have a few of these in here, a spoon, and you rub the ink with the back of a spoon and massage it into the pad. You may have to do this a few times, but you'll see the ink disperse a bit more evenly, and you can use this middle bit and it will stamp a little bit less blotchy. So I'm going to stamp another one of these onto the, so I'm stamping in Parakeet Party on Parakeet Party. Oh, that was, look at that. Can you tell I've been doing that? Okay. It should be fine though, because it's actually getting layered. So you only need one of those. I've just stamped it twice. So I think that was everything apart from this little bit here. I'm going to stamp the tiny one that says I miss you, and I've popped this on a tiny little block, and I've pre-die cut out one of the tiny little tags. So hopefully I can get this lined up okay. Let's see. Oh, that's pretty good. So now I can't pick it up with my finger. I'll set that aside because that one's finished. And then the last bit of stamping we need to do is actually on this basic black piece, and I'm just going to stamp my sentiment, which I'm going to use the one that says thank you for your friendship. So I'm going to bring in some Versamark ink and just ink that up nicely, and then stamp that right along the bottom. And then bring in some white embossing powder and just sprinkle that onto the sentiment. Maybe a little bit more on there. Oh. It should be good. Okie dokie, then I will just heat up my heat gun for a second. Just melt this embossing powder. And I can set this one to the side for just a moment while we do some die cutting. So I'm going to bring in my little die cut machine, although I'm tempted actually to show something much cooler at the moment. I'll bring in my big one because we have the brand new magnetic plate, and they only make this for the big one at the moment. They haven't got them for the small one, so I'm really excited because this makes it so much easier to die cut. Oh, sorry. So you just pop the image you want to die cut straight on here, and it literally lines up. It's so cool. Stamping this tone on tone makes it hard to see, but let's see if we can line it up okay. Don't want to get my big head in the way. I'll just pop that one in. Hopefully that's lined up okay. It was very hard to see. And hopefully I'm not shaking the camera too much. Perfect. So the cool thing about the magnetic plate is that usually I would stick all these down with washi tape to hold the die in place, but with the magnetic plate you do not need to. It's going to stay. I'm always so fussy with how I line it up. So then I can line up my other ones. And this little dot at the end is just so you can see the tip of that stem. It means that you've got it lined up perfectly. This is just die cutting perfection when you've got a magnet. So some people say it's perfectly lined up if you've got certain ones lined up, but goodness knows if I've got that figured out yet. I think that'll do. Okay, so let's run that through and hope for the best. Perfect, perfect. Look at that, brilliant. Okay, And I'll peel these ones off. I'm so glad I got the magnetic plate out. And then we've just got one more of those to do, so I'll line that one back up and make sure I can see my stem. Best investment is buying one of these magnetic plates. Okay, so that's all the die cutting done. So I'll set that aside. And now we can start putting this all together. So to start, we might actually assemble the teacup. So I'm just going to bring in some glue. This would probably be a good one to stick some adhesive sheet down and die cut it out of that, but I never remember to do that, and it would be really handy when filming videos to have done that. But I'm just going to add some glue and stick that over the top like that. Now I'm just going to test my background and see how it's going. It's still quite wet. I might just run it over with a heat gun just to help that dry a little bit. The heat gun actually has two settings, so number 1 is probably more appropriate for drying. It's just a lower setting, whereas the other one you'll need for heat embossing. So I like to do it on both sides. That helps to stop the warping. And just heat that up a little bit. Get another. Right, that's much better. So I'm going to adhere that to a piece of basic black. So I'm just going to add some liquid glue in between those rows of dots. Oops. Once again, you could, if you wanted to, cut this out of adhesive sheet. Although in saying that, I don't know how that would go adding water. I think it would be fine because it's got one side that's a waterproof backing. So I'll just make sure I've got that lined up, and then I'll just press down on the other side. Like that. And how cool is that for a background? Okay, so then we can adhere that to the card base. I don't think, I know I did on the original, stick this down to the card base with some Stampin' Dimensionals. So I'll just stick a few of these and then peel off the backings. And then I'll stick that one down. Let's see, how crooked is that? Pretty crooked. Only at the top, so it's all... Oh goodness, Kayla. I did rip it a little bit, but you can't tell that much. Okay. So then the next bit I want to do is grab my circle and start adhering things where I want them. So I'm going to stick this one down to the card with some Stampin' Dimensionals as well. So I'll just pop 4 on there. I'm going to stick this roughly in the middle like that. And then I'm going to stick my teacup here as a guide, but I'm not going to stick it yet. So I'm just going to start popping things in where I think I might like them. So I want to sort of get these greenery bits arranged roughly, and then I'm going to pop in some of these awkward oasis stems, a bit like that. So when I'm happy with how it's sitting, what I'm going to do is add some liquid glue and start poking those in. I only want a little bit of glue. I can stick that one. Lastly, this greenery one, which I'm sticking a little bit lower. And then I'm going to stick my teacup over the top of that lot with some Stampin' Dimensionals. So I'll just take those dots off, and then I can stick that right over the top like that. And then what I might do is stick my sentiment on before I start adding further bits and pieces. So I'm going to grab my little guillotine and just trim that sentiment into one strip. And then I can grab my scissors and just trim. And I'll start sitting that where I want it. And then I'm going to bring in the twine. So this Cool Baker's twine comes in all of the in colours. And I'm going to combine it with some linen thread to tie a double bow. So I'm just going to grab a length of it and wrap that around my fingers, and then cut the other end. I can never explain how to do this on a video, but I recommend watching on YouTube how to tie a double bow with your fingers, and there'll be a few tutorials that pop up, and it's good to watch them kind of in slow motion. I had to do it a few times to teach myself, but I think it's similar to the fork technique I've seen someone do. Today I'm not very good at it. I think you can do this around the, what do you call it, the sharp bits of fork, if that makes sense. I've never done it with a fork. And today my fingers aren't working. Let's see. Gosh, I'm glad that I'm not showing you how to do it. Have I? Okay. There we go. And that's a really complicated way of showing you how to tie a double bow. Okay, so I've got that one there ready, and I can cut the tails. I might actually cut them once I've stuck them. So I'm just going to stick a few of these little floral pieces around. I might just stick them as I go because I know roughly where they're going. For little pieces like this, it's good to have some craft tweezers. Okay. And then one more I might put up here. I love all these in colours together. Okay, so for the linen or the thread bow, I'm just going to grab a glue dot and my Teacup tool, and I'm just going to stick that over there. So I wanted to get that done before, oops, I stuck my sentiments. I'm just going to, actually quite like the longer tails on that, and I'm going to add some glue dots to my sentiment strip because I actually want to stick that over the top, and I don't care that this end's stuck to the card. Then for the little tag, I'm going to do the same thing, and I might add 2 glue dots because I want it to be stuck there really, really well. And I'm going to stick that over the top of the center of that bow. And then lastly, on the outside of the card, I've spritzed some Winker Stella to make it sparkly. And you can go and add some more sparkle to some of these bits if you want. I think I liked it on the Orchid Oasis, which you probably should do before you stick them down really, but it doesn't matter too much. Like that. And then to decorate the outside, I added some of these really cool in colour matte decorative dots. So I went with the Tahitian Tide ones, and these are ombre, so you can add them in a few different tones of the colour, which is cool. I might go a lighter one up here. So that's the outside of the card, pretty trendy. And then the inside of the card, I have lost the bits. Oh, they're there. Okay. So the inside of the card is pretty simple. I have just gone and grabbed a stamp that I didn't use on the outside, and that is this really cool teacup here. So I'm going to get the striped teacup and pop that onto a block. And on this white piece, I'm going to stamp that one in the sweet sorbet. So I'll just ink that up, and I'm going to stamp it a little bit off the side. I don't care that it's not perfectly on the card. And then I'm going to bring back in this little foliage bit that we stamped in Parakeet Party. Ink that up, and I'm going to try and line that up with the top of that teacup. I stamped that in there, which is cool. And then I'm going to bring back in these flowers that I die cut, but I'm just going to have to give them a clean because we've been using a bit of sweet sorbet on there, which is not what we want. Just put them on the block again. And I'm going to stamp those ones in some Orchid Oasis, and I'm just going to position them on there and stamp them on. And the last thing I'm going to do is grab the thank you from inside this stamp set, and I'll stamp that in the center of my card like that. And then that one can get mounted to a layer of black. Like that. And then this one can get stuck to the inside of the card. So I'll just pop that right in the middle. I might even add a little bit of Winker Stella, some sparkle. So that is the finished card using the 5 brand new ink colours. So hope you enjoyed learning a few techniques, and I will see you back in July. Bye!